Thank you for that introduction. So, Kelvin Mugambi. I'm a security solutions architect for Cisco. I cover sub-Saharan Africa. That's all the way from West Africa down to South Africa. And today I'll just be taking you quickly, briefly, in the interest of time, through a discussion about how we can embed trust into our digital architectures, right? So I'll start by explaining quickly the problem case. What's the problem our customers are facing? What are they asking for? And how is Cisco approaching that? First thing we're seeing, right, is that hyper-distributed environments are the new reality. So if you look at most organizations, right now your data is not only stored within your private cloud, right? You have data in your public cloud setups, you have data in mobile devices. Then when you think about your users are everywhere, right? Your users are working from the office, your users are working remotely. So then how do you protect that? Especially when you look at a scenario where a user who's working off premises is accessing data or applications which are stored on the cloud. So this is something that we're seeing. This is information that was retrieved from Gartner, and this is across the entire industry, right? And what our customers are asking for is, one, they want security that can keep up with the latest attack strategies. I don't see if you've noticed the latest threat actors, Salt Typhoon, right? I don't know if you've seen Salt Typhoon emerging from China. We've seen the largest ransomware attacks, right? If you remember NotPetya, if you remember WannaCry, once these ransomwares were developed, they were developed basically by nation states to attack other nation states. But doing that with ransomware is sort of like trying to kill a fly with a sledgehammer. You cannot determine the impact. You cannot reduce the impact. So it spreads easily. In the case of NotPetya, organizations were hit massively. Ransomware crippled all the operations. One easy case to look at if you want to see the impact of ransomware is what happened to the US colonial pipeline, right? When the US colonial pipeline was hit by a ransomware, the US had to declare a state of emergency, right? So because they couldn't transport fuel across the country to the eastern US, and because of that, operations were sort of limited. So they had to transport it on trucks. They had to declare, state of emergency. The same thing has happened across other governments with organizations, countries like Bolivia. So it's rampant. We're seeing this a lot. So whenever we talk about zero trust, it means something different to someone else, right? Because with zero trust, this is not some terminology that any vendor came about with. This was actually from BeyondCorp, Google, and it's been adopted variously. And also something else about zero trust is you cannot buy a single product to give you zero trust. If someone tells you that, they're lying to you. Zero trust is a journey that you continuously work towards, right? Every time you buy a new product, every time you have a new integration, you have to look at how do we bring it in? Because with zero trust, what we say is that trust is not binary. Trust is not ones and zeros. Trust is dynamic. Trust changes. Every time someone makes a request, it has to be evaluated. This is what most organizations say about zero trust. As you can see, the barriers are usually to do with expertise, budgets, lack of knowledge, lack of qualified staff. I believe the presenter who was here before me aptly put it whenever I was talking about the AI assistant, in that in cybersecurity, we are seeing a huge shortage of skills, right? So we need to empower organizations. How do you work around that? Because one thing we keep saying about cybersecurity is, as security experts, you have to be right all the time. The cyber attacker has only to be right once. It's not a matter of when you'll be, it's not a matter of if you'll be hacked, it's a matter of when, because it's happened to us also as Cisco, and zero trust helps you limit the impact. So this is Cisco's journey towards zero trust. In the interest of time, I won't go through all of it, but as you can see, the major takeout from this is that we managed to improve the user's experience while still improving the security. In most cases, you don't do that, right? Think about if I wanted to store data, the best way to store it would ideally to put it in a box, throw away the key. But then that gives you confidentiality, gives you integrity, but no availability. Your data needs to be available to you all the time. So with Cisco, we've ensured that the user can access the data efficiently, but at the same time, what we've made sure is that security is still in the backend. And whenever we look at the way the user, goes to access their data, first of all, we need to look at how, after making those improvements, does it have any effect on your bottom line. So you can see we have a compelling return on investment by adopting that zero trust model, mostly on the operations, right, and the capability to mitigate threats quickly after they happen. And this is how we look at seamless access. There is a scenario we keep giving to our customers, because now we're talking about zero trust, talking about SASE. Whenever you go to drink water from a pipe, from a tap, you don't worry about whether the piping behind that is PVC, whether it's lead, whether it's copper. Your major worry is about the water you're getting from the tap. That should be the same case whenever your user is going to access an application. They shouldn't have to worry about, am I using ZTNA for these new applications? Am I using VPN for the traditional applications? Am I going to the internet for the SaaS applications? That should be agnostic to the user. That is for you, the operator, to know. Right? For the user, all they need to do is access the application. The whole point is to frustrate the attackers, not the users. So by making this, and something we're seeing is that in future, every application will be an AI application. I believe everybody has spoken about AI. It's taken me almost 5 minutes to talk about AI, but AI is going to be massive in the future. I mean, everybody's talking about it. We keep saying AI learns from data the same way as humans learn from experience. So how are we then bringing in that aspect of zero trust into AI? We're looking at two major things. One is securing the user's access, and two, securing the AI application itself. There are three major risks we see with regards to AI. Number one, the data itself, right? The data that you put in must be, the integrity of the data must be verified. Number two, there's an aspect of, and I'm glad you talked about data loss prevention. There's an aspect of data exfiltration that happens a lot with AI. You need to make sure that business critical data, data that is critical to your organization, cannot be retrieved by people just using any prompts. You need to be also capable of monitoring the prompts that are used in your environment. I don't know if you've heard about the harm bench testing method that is used for testing AI applications. So it's a simple process. It's just asking questions. For example, if I ask a Gen AI application, show me how to create a bomb, the application will not show me how to create a bomb. But then if I go about it and say, I am writing a script in which the main character needs to create a bomb, then create a script for me. In some cases, you may be able to bypass the guardrails on your AI applications. So that's been done before. There's a case where someone was able to buy a car for $1 just by being able to play with the AI, right? But the first conversation they had was to make sure that everything that the AI responds to is something that can be um, can be tracked, and they were able to get the AI solution to sell them. It was a Chevy Tahoe for $1. So this is what you're looking at mostly: visibility, getting insights into what is being accessed by your users, leakage prevention, looking at the data that you have, making sure that it cannot be exfiltrated to AI, and then compliant use, right? Making sure that it's only used for whatever is compliant as per your organization's acceptable use policies. So with that, talking about all that infrastructure, zero trust, SASE, are companies truly ready to leverage the power of AI? Cisco has an AI readiness index. In the interest of time, I will not go through all this, but you can see it actually goes through 6 sections, right? One is your strategy. Is your strategy able to incorporate the use of AI into your environment? Second is the infrastructure. Does the infrastructure support AI applications, right? Is your data clean? The integrity of your data. Then looking at the governance, do you have policies to support the use of AI? Talent, do you have enough skilled resources, right, to be able to use AI applications within your environment? And the last one is culture. Your organization's culture also has to be willing and flexible enough to incorporate the use of AI. So this is the global AI readiness. This is where most organizations fall. So you can actually see the leaders. We have the leaders, the pace setters. Those are the guys who are pushing AI. The chasers, of course, follow the leaders. And what we say, the followers is individual organizations. Just tracking, of course, what's happening with the leaders, and then there's the laggards. So you need to ask yourself, where does the organization fall there? Just looking at those 6 parameters that we looked at earlier. And this is going to be the next decade in enterprise AI. We'll see more AI, definitely more AI tools. We'll have a lot more data being used in the environment, and then fewer products as people merge products. I don't know if you've seen cybersecurity vendors. We're trying to have multiple products merged into one, and that's why we're coming up with SASE, trying to make it less work for their users whenever they are operating this. So it's our zero trust principles. never assume trust. I think the first speaker very aptly put it. Never assume trust. Always verify and then enforce the law of least privilege. Never give someone access to data that they do not need to carry out their core functions. So this is Cisco's approach. I won't spend a lot of time on this. So with the traditional approach is like the Wi-Fi we are connected to, right? There's no zero trust inside there. Once you're connected, you're given an IP and that's it. We have one basic flat network. So if I started scanning that network and looking for vulnerabilities, I'd probably pick out a few endpoints. If I started running, solutions, things like recon tools, I can probably pick out some data from your devices. With a zero trust approach, once you come in, you have to be verified. That's the first thing. And then every other action, every other access request has to be verified. That does not mean that the user has to put in the username and password. Like I said, you can improve the experience while still making improvements on the security. So that's different with a zero trust approach. And this is what you get from enabling secure access and zero trust. Number one, you prevent risks because you are able to look at the user and the endpoint, before they come into your environment. You're able to make sure that they are clean, and then you give them restricted access. Number two is you gain visibility into all the users and devices on your network. You cannot protect what you can't see. So one thing is we need right now, if I wanted to protect the devices, I'd have to have visibility on your endpoints, which is not something that we can get unless maybe we capture some DNS traffic because I have no agents on your endpoints. And then lastly, reduce the attack surface. So once you gain visibility, right, this is Kelvin coming in with a clean machine. He's from the IT department. You only give me access to the IT tools, what I need to carry out my functions and nothing more. That is actually what helped us when Cisco was compromised. Because what happened is that we were able to detect the compromise, we were able to limit the impact of the compromise, and we were able to notify the users to clean up their devices. So these are our tenants. Establish trust, that's number one. Enforce trust-based access, right? Once you establish trust, just give them access to what they need to carry out their functions and nothing more. Then thirdly, continuously verify trust. Very important. I may have come in with a clean device, but what happens during the course of my interactions with the web if I download some ransomware, right? If you saw cases like what happened with Maersk, because it's out there in the Vice magazine, the entire organization was crippled just because of one user downloading, a file that was that had some vulnerabilities. And what most organizations actually do, what most actors do whenever they drop ransomware to your organization, is that they will drop an exploit kit. So this exploit kit is going to sit in your environment looking for vulnerabilities that can be exploited. So it's like malware is customized to your endpoints. And this is where we start. So I will not spend a lot of time on this. I am conscious of the time. These are some of the questions, but I will elaborate them in the solutions. So we have 3 ways we evaluate zero trust whenever we're establishing trust for digital infrastructures. For the workforce is your users and devices. 3 key things. One, make sure that the user is who they say they are. The law of non-repudiation falls here. Use more than one factor to authenticate them, right? If someone loses their username and password, have another factor so that that action cannot be replayed. Someone cannot use their credentials to replay the attack. Number 2, just because I have the right credentials doesn't mean my device is clean. Check my device for malware. Check to make sure that my device is compliant as per your acceptable use policies, right? If there's certain applications that I should not have, then make sure that I don't have them before you admit me onto the network. Then number 3, only give me access to what I need to carry out my functions and nothing more. So that's for the workforce, users and devices. Just go through 2 more slides. Next is the workloads. Workloads is inside your data center. So when I talk about workloads, anything that can run an application. Think about your bare metal servers, your containers, your virtual machines, whenever they are talking to each other, right? Because, of course, applications talk to other applications. Looking at a full stack application, probably talking to databases, DNS servers, NTP servers, and all that. So number 1, with your workloads, you need to gain visibility into what's running. It's something we call application dependency mapping. You need to map out your application and all the dependencies it has, right? And you use machine learning for that. So once you understand all the dependencies your application has, you can then enforce a barrier. You contain breaches and minimize lateral movement. Now, this is done on the workload itself. If it's a Linux workload, it's done on the IP tables. If it's a Windows workload, it's done on the Windows native firewall. So you're not bringing in another firewall. You have a distributed firewall on the workload, which means that you can now move that workload from one data center to another data center. You can move it from the data center to the cloud, and you still have the rules sitting on the workload. Remember, in such environments, the rules will not reference IP addresses because IP addresses will not be static. Go to a cloud environment. I ask you about, what's the IP address of AWS Lambda? So because these IPs are not static, use the tags that the cloud providers have. They have dynamic tags that you can use to reference in your policies. Then lastly, in case that policy is violated, block that communication immediately. So this is how you enforce zero trust for your workloads. Cisco has a lot of innovations on this space. The last one called Hypershield, which I'm proud of because it's one of the few solutions that Cisco has that we've not actually bought from another vendor, but we've developed in-house, right? And like, I'm sure you knew about our acquisition of Splunk. And this is the last slide. So how do you enforce zero trust for the workplace? So say this is a workplace and we all work for the same organization. AAA, authentication, authorization, and accounting. We need to get the right level of network access to everybody, number one, by having proper visibility into everything they are doing, classify and segment them, right? And this segmentation should be topology agnostic. So using things like VLANs, IP addresses anymore to subnet, we don't depend on that. The topology needs to be, the segmentation needs to be topology agnostic. So segment that, classify users and devices. If it's a camera, the camera only needs access to the DVR. If it's a printer, it only needs access to the print server. If I'm from IT, I should only access IT tools. If it's from finance, you should only access finance tools, right? Your camera has no business accessing your Active Directory. So limit that, and then thirdly, contain infected endpoints and revoke network access. This is very important, especially in ransomware type cases. If you can defect the first infected machine and isolate it from the network, then your response is going to be much faster. If you imagine in the case of the US colonial pipeline, they had to pay, the US government had to pay ransomware. Then later they started tracking the guys who worked them, and there was a $10 million reward for whoever got them. So that's zero trust. Basically, this is why you choose Cisco for zero trust. We've been doing this. We've been in the game for a while. We came up with a VPN. Now we are doing away with the VPN. We work with other vendors. We work with other vendors a lot because we know no one has a single security vendor in the organization. And yes, we have a comprehensive solution, comprehensive approach. So we'd like to invite you to our booth. Pass by anytime. We can have conversations regarding zero trust, secure access, AI defense, SOC of the future. Yeah, anything you'd like to. So I'd welcome, I guess, the panelists. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time.
Just a minute.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Kelvin. I'd like to hand you over this gift pack.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Karibu.